After Emma's death, Richard and his wife started experiencing strange occurrences in their home. The children would cry out in the night, and the atmosphere felt fearful. Doors would creak, and the kitchen would seem to shake, as if someone was moving around. They'd hear whispers and footsteps in the bedrooms, but whenever they investigated, they'd find no one. Richard and his wife were terrified, unsure of what was happening or how to address it. They'd wonder if Emma's spirit was visiting them, trying to communicate or scare them. But they'd brush off the thought, telling themselves that a dead person can't come back to haunt the living. They'd attribute the strange events to changes in the atmosphere or the old house settling. But the occurrences continued, leaving them feeling uneasy and frightened. Tyler, one of the twins, fell gravely ill. His parents, Richard and his wife, did everything possible to save him, taking him to various hospitals and spending money on treatment. However, despite the doctors' efforts, Tyler's condition didn't improve. The doctors ran numerous tests, but nothing seemed to pinpoint the cause of his illness. They were baffled, and Tyler's parents were beside themselves with worry. The doctors eventually discharged Tyler, suggesting that there was nothing wrong with him, but his parents knew something was terribly wrong. Tyler felt weak. His mother held him tight, begging him not to leave them. Despite their efforts, Tyler's condition continued to deteriorate. Hospital after hospital rejected them, unable to diagnose the problem. In the end, despite his parents' desperate attempts to save him, Tyler passed away. Richard sat on the sitting room, overcome with grief, tears streaming down his face as he mourned the loss of his son, Tyler. Meanwhile, in another room, Jacinta sat crying, her heart heavy with sorrow. She prayed to God, questioning why he allowed such tragedy to befall them after waiting so long for children. "Why, God, did you let the devil take away my son?" she cried, her voice shaking with anguish. "Please protect my remaining child from the eyes of the wicked." Both Richard and Jacinta were consumed by grief, their screams echoing through the house. They knew their past actions had led to this tragedy, and the weight of their guilt was crushing. Their minds were haunted by memories of their treatment to Emma, their adopted daughter who had passed away months ago. They had been wicked to her, and now they were paying the price. Jacinta's best friend, Emily, visited to offer condolences for the loss of their son, Tyler. "It's just the will of God," Emily said, trying to comfort her friend. "He will wipe away your tears and maybe bless you with another child." Jacinta nodded, still overcome with grief. "But why did God take my son?" she asked, her voice shaking. Emily held her tightly. "We can't question God's ways, Jacinta. We just have to trust in His plan." As they sat together, Emily asked about Emma, Jacinta's adopted daughter. Jacinta's eyes welled up with tears again. "Emma's gone," she said softly. "She passed away." Emily's eyes widened in shock. "What? How did she die?" Jacinta glanced around nervously, ensuring no one was listening. "Please, keep your voice down. People don't know she's dead." Emily nodded, her curiosity piqued. "What happened to her?" Jacinta hesitated, then revealed the shocking truth. "Richard and we were responsible for her death." Emily's eyes grew even wider. "What do you mean? Did you harm her?" Jacinta nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We were so consumed by our own desires and greed." Emily looked horrified. "I never advised you to harm her, Jacinta. I only suggested you send her away, so she wouldn't be part of Richard's inheritance." Jacinta's eyes locked onto Emily's, accusingly. "You're saying you didn't advise me to get rid of her?" But I could have sworn." Emily shook her head firmly. "No, Jacinta. I never told you to harm her." "I'm shocked you'd think that." The two friends sat in stunned silence, the weight of Jacinta's words hanging in the air. Emily's expression turned from shock to disgust. "Jacinta, I'm very disappointed in you, she said, her voice firm but controlled. How could you have taken the life of an innocent girl? Jacinta's eyes widened in defensiveness. You're saying this to me? Weren't you the one who advised me to do whatever it takes to stop her from being a problem? Emily's face turned red with anger. My dear, I never asked you to take her life. I only suggested you send her away. Where did you people bury her, that nobody knew about her death? Jacinta's head hung in shame. We buried her on the beach, where no one would ever find her. Emily's voice rose in horror. Jesus, oh my goodness! Jacinta! I never knew you were this heartless. You have the mind to kill a human being? I'm very disappointed in you, and to be honest, I'm even scared of you. You might harm me one day. Jacinta's eyes snapped up, shocked. Are you the one saying this to me? Or is it someone else? Emily's gaze pierced Jacinta's soul. Yes, I'm the one telling you this. Jacinta, you're evil. Who knows if it's not the anger of that little child that's responsible for taking the life of your twin boy, Tyler? How could you be so heartless? Jacinta felt a stinging sensation from Emily's words. Emily's voice grew louder, her words cutting deeper. I forbid you, you'll never see me in your house again. In fact, you'll never see me in your life again. With that, Emily turned and walked out of the house, leaving Jacinta alone in the sitting room, tears streaming down her face. Jacinta sat alone in the sitting room, tears streaming down her face. Oh God, I'm such a fool, she whispered, regret and anguish etched on her face. I listened to Emily's advice, and now look what's happened. She's disappointed in me, and who knows, she might even expose our secret. Jacinta's thoughts turned bitter as she thought about Emily's sudden change in behavior. She was the one who advised me, and now she's acting like she's innocent. She's not even standing by me when I need her most. As she cried, Jacinta's words turned into a desperate plea. Oh Emma, my beloved daughter, please find a way in your heart to forgive me. I'm sorry for taking your life, but Jacinta's words hung in the empty air, unheard by anyone else. She didn't notice that she was alone, consumed by her own guilt and regret. Meanwhile, Emily sat in her own home, thinking about the situation. People can be so stupid, she thought to herself. If I advise you to do something, you shouldn't take it to extremes. Jacinta was so reckless, so heartless. Emily shook her head, remembering the conversation she had with Jacinta. I only told her to send Emma away, not to kill her. I'm glad I'm not involved in that mess, but as Emily thought she had distanced herself from the situation, fate had other plans. Little did she know that a bigger problem was looming on the horizon, one that would soon engulf her life. Richard and Jacinta's business began to struggle, with daily losses and thefts draining their resources. They were perplexed, wondering what could be causing their misfortune. Their second child, Juliet, started to fall ill, growing thin and weak. Despite hospital visits and tests, doctors couldn't find any underlying medical issue. It's not a medical problem, they were told. Desperate, Richard and Jacinta sought help from various churches and pastors, who promised deliverance but instead extorted money from them. Each prayer session ended in disappointment. Juliet's condition worsened, and she became a skeleton, her frailty terrifying her parents. Jacinta was too scared to even hold her, wondering how someone so fragile could still be alive. As Juliet's health declined, Richard and Jacinta's desperation grew. They were trapped in a cycle of fear, uncertainty, and sorrow, unsure of how to save their daughter or reverse their fortunes. Richard and Jacinta stood in the passageway of their house, discussing what to do with their daughter Juliet, who had become a skeleton-like figure. Jacinta's voice was laced with desperation. I think we should just bury her, Jacinta said, her words sending a chill down Richard's spine. She's refused to die, and she's tormenting us. We can't sleep at night because of her. Richard's eyes widened in shock. Bury our own daughter alive? Jacinta, she's still breathing, still alive. Jacinta's expression was cold. Is she still alive? She looks like a stick, a broken broom. She's not even human anymore. She's just a skeleton, tormenting us. Richard felt a lump form in his throat as he looked at Jacinta. How can you say that, Jacinta? She's our daughter. Jacinta's voice rose. I know she's our daughter, but what can we do? She's been like this for so long, and we can't take it anymore. We need to think about ourselves, about our own sanity. Richard shook his head, tears streaming down his face. Oh God, why me? Why am I facing this type of challenge? God, please find a way, a solution to my problem. Jacinta turned to him, her eyes cold and hard. The only solution is to bury her, Richard. That's the only way we can be free from this torment. Nothing else will work. With that, Jacinta turned and walked away, leaving Richard alone in the passageway, crying out to God for help. At midnight, Richard and Jacinta packaged their skeleton daughter Juliet into a carton and headed to the bush to bury her. As they dug her grave, they cried out to God, acknowledging their wrongdoing but pleading for forgiveness. God, we know we've done something wrong, but it wasn't intentional, Richard sobbed. Please find it in your heart to forgive us. After burying Juliet, they returned home, overcome with grief. They broke down in tears, questioning God's will. Why, God? Jacinta cried. Why are we facing this? As they mourned, life became increasingly difficult. One night, Richard received a call that his shop had been burned down by fire. He cried out in despair, and Jacinta consoled him. 2 days later, Jacinta's boutique was attacked by armed robbers. They took everything, including the little money she had in her bank account. She escaped with her life but returned home devastated. Richard, your shop was burned down, and now my boutique has been robbed, she said, tears streaming down her face. What have we done to deserve this? We're left with nothing but this house, and even our rent is about to expire. Richard's eyes were red-rimmed as he looked up. God, what's the meaning of this? We're being punished for our sins. The weight of their misfortunes crushed them, and they wondered if they would ever find redemption. Richard and Jacinta sat at home, idle and broke. They managed on the little money Richard had saved, but it soon ran out. Richard's confusion grew as he struggled to find a way out. My friends won't even help me, he said, frustration etched on his face. They say they don't want to be part of my problems, that they might face the same challenges. Jacinta looked at him with tears in her eyes. What did we do, Richard? Where is this misfortune coming from? The landlord's visit added to their woes. Your rent has expired, he said firmly. You need to pay up or vacate the premises. Richard and Jacinta begged for patience, but the landlord was unmoved. You have a few days to leave, he said coldly. As the reality of their situation sunk in, Richard and Jacinta were consumed by despair. They sat in their bedroom, crying and shedding tears, unsure of how to start anew. What are we going to do? Jacinta whispered, her voice trembling. Richard shook his head, feeling humiliated and isolated. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know where to start. The weight of their circumstances crushed them, leaving them lost and hopeless. The landlord's ultimatum had expired, and he arrived with men to throw Richard and Jacinta's belongings out. The couple watched in despair as their possessions were tossed onto the street. With nowhere to go, they sat at the corner of a park, bags scattered around them, and cried bitterly. How did it come to this? Richard wondered, feeling defeated. As they roamed the city, they stumbled upon an uncompleted building and decided to make it their temporary home. Each morning, Richard would hire a wheelbarrow and push goods at the market, earning a meager income. Jacinta would hawk sachet water, trying to make ends meet. Their days blended together in a struggle to survive. They'd return to the uncompleted building. gather their earnings, and manage to feed themselves. As they sat on the floor, eating their meager rations, Jacinta looked at Richard and smiled weakly. "We're getting by," she said, trying to find solace in their resilience, but the shame and humiliation lingered. Passers-by would glance at the uncompleted building, wondering how a once prominent couple had fallen so far. Richard and Jacinta felt like shadows of their former selves, their dignity bruised and battered. "Is this really us?" Jacinta whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. Richard's gaze fell, and he nodded silently, unsure of how to answer. One day, as Richard and Jacinta sat at the park after a long day of hustling, a madman appeared out of nowhere, laughing maniacally. They wondered why he was laughing at them, but the madman's expression turned serious. "You evil couple," he said, his voice filled with anger. "This is where you've ended up." Richard and Jacinta exchanged confused glances. "What do you mean?" Richard asked. The madman's eyes seemed to bore into their souls. "You killed your innocent adopted daughter, and you think life would be good for you? That girl was a blessing from God, but you didn't understand her value." Jacinta's eyes widened in shock. "How did you know about that?" she stammered. The madman's smile grew wider. "It's the cry and mourn of that innocent girl that has turned your fortunes into misfortune. You reaped what you sowed." Richard and Jacinta looked at each other, stunned. How did this madman know their darkest secret? The madman's words cut deep, and they felt exposed, their guilt and shame laid. Richard's desperation grew as he approached the madman. "Please, can you tell us what to do to be free from this bondage?" he begged. The madman's expression turned cold, and he laughed uncontrollably. "I don't have the solution for you," he said, his eyes piercing Richard's soul. "You're not man enough to control your home. The deed has been done, and now you must face the consequences." The madman's words cut deep, predicting a bleak future. "You'll remain poor and barren forever. Time will come when you'll barely have anything to eat. You'll cry and beg for death, but it will never come." Richard stood frozen, shocked and confused. The madman's words echoed in his mind, and he wondered if he should follow him or stay put. The weight of his past actions crushed him, and he felt hopeless. The madman's final words lingered. "You'll remain alive and see your own grave." Richard's eyes followed the madman as he walked away, laughing maniacally. Richard's anger boiled over as he turned to Jacinta. "You evil woman, I regret the day I married you," he spat, his words cutting deep. "What haven't I done for you? I waited years for you to conceive, remained faithful, and accepted your idea of adopting Emma. But you pushed me to maltreat her, and you killed her. You made me bury her in the bush and our own child alive." Jacinta's face bent in shame, tears streaming down her face. Richard's eyes blazed with anger as he continued, "You've turned me into a wretched man, a barren one at that. It shall never be well with you." With that, Richard angrily left Jacinta standing alone, crying uncontrollably. She looked up at the sky, her voice barely above a whisper. "Oh God, forgive me, Emma. Please forgive me. I followed the wrong advice. I was kind to you, but someone came between us. I'm sorry." Jacinta's sobs echoed through the park, her body shaking with grief. She felt the weight of her actions crushing her, and she wondered if she would ever find redemption. As the years passed, Richard and Jacinta grew old, their lives marked by poverty and childlessness. Despite their past wealth and status, they ended up with nothing, a consequence of their actions towards Emma. Meanwhile, Jacinta's friend Emily, who had once advised Jacinta to maltreat Emma, also grew old and lonely. Emily had married multiple times, hoping to conceive, but was ultimately rejected by her husbands due to her inability to bear children. As she aged, she faced isolation and rejection, a stark contrast to the life she had once known. The story of Richard, Jacinta, and Emily serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of harming innocent lives. Emma, the adopted daughter. had brought favor and blessings to Richard and Jacinta's lives, but their cruel actions towards her led to their downfall. The moral of the story is clear: treat others with kindness and respect, for you never know whom God has sent to redeem you. The lives of Richard, Jacinta, and Emily ended in poverty, loneliness, and regret, a reminder of the importance of compassion and empathy towards others.